This is Gun and Butter, true crime stories told by your favorite cousin, Kinda G.
That's what it's all about. Guns and butter, baby. You little dumb motherfuckers.
Happy New Year, everyone. We officially made it to 2024. I hope everybody had a good night bringing in the new year. Hopefully, it was with good vibes, family, friends, food, drink. You know how we do. But I just wanted to come on here and formally introduce myself. My name is Kinda G, and welcome to Guns and Butter, a true crime podcast. I've been thinking about doing a podcast for forever. So I finally decided to jump my black ass off the porch and stop talking about it, okay? We about action. This is something that I know is going to keep my attention and something that I can do without leaving my daggum house, spending unnecessary money while telling a story in a creative way. I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to audiobooks. So why not listen to my motherfucking self, okay? I hope y'all enjoy the content that I bring forward, but it's basically just going to be true crimes or murders or mysteries that really draw my attention. I couldn't really sit down and decide on one specific genre, like if I wanted to focus on children behind bars or exonerated people. I just couldn't decide on one specific thing because I just love all the nitty gritty details that go into the murders and the crime itself. So I'm just going to be telling you guys true crimes that really interest me, and I hope they interest you as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into our first murder. As adults, we all understand what it's like to go through struggles or to fall on hard times. And sometimes when we fall on these hard times, it causes us to revert to doing things that we may not be so proud of in order to earn a little bit of money and ultimately just to survive. And the people that we come in contact with while we're on these hard times and we're going through these struggles do not always have the purest intentions for us. In this week's lineup, we have our victim, 29-year-old Bianca Rainer. She was born August 10th, 1988 in Blytheville, Arkansas. She was raised by her grandparents, Lillian and John Lewis. She graduated in 2006 from Blytheville High School, and she later went on to receive her CNA license. She had two daughters, Amaya and Elia Campbell. She was described by her family as an angel on earth. She could be a little timid and quiet, but she was always happy and she was always smiling. We have our two suspects, Jasper Perry, her roommate at the time and friend, a 911 caller, Ricky Bassett, and our murderer, Harold Bennett. Harold was a 43-year-old white man who recently moved into the house across the street from where Bianca's body was found. The police later learned that he was wanted for violating his parole. He was a level 4 sex offender who was convicted for sex crimes in Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is about an hour away from Blytheville. He failed to report himself as an offender when he moved to his new address in Blytheville. So, to give a little background, I did not know that sex offenders had like levels to them. Level 1 sex offender is low risk, level 2 moderate risk, level 3 high risk, and level 4 a sexually violent predator. So just remember that while we are going through the details of this story today. On June 20th, 2018, at around 10 o'clock a.m., the Blytheville Police Department received a call from a utility worker. He was a little shaken up and he gave a little bit of details about what he was seeing, but this caused authorities to arrive at an abandoned house on the 21st block on West Cherry Street in Blytheville. So off rip, upon arrival, they could smell a distinctive scent of decay, and right off top, they knew that somebody was dead. After doing a little bit more searching around the house, they find an African American woman lying in the brush on the side of the house. You can tell she's been there for a couple days just off the smell. You can see that she's badly beaten. Her face is really swollen. You can see that it's slightly decayed, but it's definitely unrecognizable. They also noticed that she might have been raped just based off of this dark dried up blood color that's on the front of her striped pink and black dress. They also see that she has a couple of tattoos on her lower leg. But the key piece of evidence that stuck out the most to them was that there were small puzzle pieces stuck to her body. Now she's laying in some tall grass on the side of an abandoned house with no puzzle in sight. So they're trying to figure out where these puzzle pieces could have possibly come from. This also lets them know that she was moved there. The crime did not take place where she was laying. As they examine the scene, they don't really see anything that stands out to them outside other than the puzzle pieces. So they go inside to see if there is any signs that the crime actually took place inside of the abandoned house. So on the inside of the house, there's no signs of a struggle. There's no blood splatter. Someone once did live there, but at this point, it's pretty much home for drug users and squatters and homeless people. But they did have an moment when they noticed an orthopedic bracelet randomly placed in the house. Now, they don't exactly know if it's related to the crime, but they go ahead and tuck it away into their back pocket and, just save it for a later time. As they're wrapping up at the crime scene, they notice that there's a man out front asking if anybody has seen his friend Bianca Rainer. When they go out to talk to the man, he's already gone. So they had to figure out who he was and track him down. They found out that he lived right up the street and his name was Jasper Perry. So they pulled up on him at his house and they started asking him a couple questions. Nothing too formal, but they just wanted to know why he was asking about this Bianca Rainer woman. He lets him know that Bianca is a friend of his. She fell on hard times and she needed a place to stay, so he offered his home to her. He also tells them that the last time he's seen her was about 2 days ago. They said, "Oh, okay. And do you remember what she was wearing the last time you seen her?" He said she was wearing a black and pink striped dress. They said, "Okay, well, can you come down to the police department? We have to ask you a couple more questions." He's like, "Sure, let's go." But let's just be real. At this particular point in time, Jasper is the detective's number one suspect. He was the last person to see her alive, and to put the cherry on top of the cake, he's black. So at the police station, this is a very small town. So they're hearing, family members are hearing that this potential woman may be a family member. So they're calling, trying to figure out who this person is. And they confirm that it is, in fact, Bianca based off of her tattoos on her lower leg. Also, down at the police station, they start interrogating Jasper. He tells detectives that he and Bianca were not sexually involved and that she was just, passing through and she just needed somewhere to lay her head. And he said that she could, rest at his place, just being a nice person. He says about 2 days ago, he gave her $6 to go get some cigarettes, and that was the last time he seen her. So they're like, "Okay, well, can you give us a DNA sample and go ahead and do this polygraph test for us?" He's like, "Sure." So while they're asking him these questions, they're kind of going a little hard on him, really just trying to get him to confess to a crime that he did not commit. They're asking him, did he kill her? When he killed her? Was he in any way, shape, or form involved in the planning of her death? And all of that. And of course, he's nervous and he's like denying everything, but very nervous. So he fails the test. But a lie detector test in the state of Arkansas is inadmissible to use in court. So it's really just used as a tool to steer the investigation. Of course, because he failed the test, he's a little bit defensive because now they're really coming for him. They're trying to pinpoint whatever they can in order to get him to confess to something that he did not do. So the detectives are like, "Look, you said something that really stood out to us." And he's like, "What I said?" They're like, "You told us that she wasn't raped. And you told us that she wasn't raped because you knew she was on her period. How you know all that?" And he's like, "Look, the other day I seen her in some tight shorts and I seen this big old pad. That's all I know." So they can't really hold him based off of the lie detector test, and they don't have any real proof that he did anything, so they can't hold him there. One day into the investigation, detectives start to actually do their job. Okay, they want to start doing a little bit more digging, seeing what else they can find about this crime scene. So they learned that the day before Bianca was found, that a man called from across the street from the abandoned house saying that the door at the abandoned house was open and he just wanted somebody to go over and check it out. This is such a small town again. The system recognized him as registered sex offender Ricky Bassett. They track Ricky down and they bring him into the police station, and immediately they start grilling him. They want to know why he was at that place across the street. They want to know what he saw at the abandoned house, and they want to know if he has any involvement in this murder. Ricky's like, look, I don't know nothing about no dead girl. I ain't have nothing to do with none of that. I just moved out of the house across the street from the abandoned house, and I was looking for this wrist bracelet that I lost. And they said, I know he didn't just say what I think he just said. Wrist bracelet. And if y'all remember back at the crime scene, there was that orthopedic wrist bracelet just randomly in there, and they didn't know if it had anything to do with the crime. So they just tucked it away for this moment right here. So they asked Ricky if he'd be willing to have a DNA sample done and to do a lie detector test as well. He's like, sure. So he does a lie detector test, comes out that he fails as well. So the lie detector test has once again steered the detectives in Ricky's direction. All of their attention is now focused from Jasper to him. And being that he's a registered sex offender, they start coming for this man's jugular. They want to know why he looking for this orthopedic wrist bracelet that's found at this abandoned house, which so happened to be a crime scene. And why were you calling the cops just the day before Bianca's body was found, trying to get us to go over to an abandoned house when the door was open? We don't care about an abandoned house's door being open. We don't care about none of that. What were you really trying to get us to go over there and see? Again, the lie detector test does not determine if an individual is guilty or innocent. So they cannot hold Ricky there based off of that, and they don't have any evidence linking him to the crime at this particular point in time. So Ricky is let go. But they wanted to do a little bit more digging, so they go over to the house where he said he moved from. But lo and behold, there is a new resident living in this house. So they start questioning this resident, and they ask him if he knows Mr. Ricky. And he's like, no, I don't know the man, but I seen somebody digging through my trash a couple days ago, and I told him to get the hell off my property. And they're like, okay, well, do you have any identification on you? And he's looking around, looking real suspicious, not giving them any eye contact. And he's like, nah, I ain't got no identification. I was robbed a couple weeks ago on the train, and they took everything, including my wallet and my ID and everything I had on me. And they're like, okay, well, what's your name, sir? He lies about what his name is, and then he tells them that his birthday is July 21st, 1995. And they looking at this man like, bro, you look about 60 years old. You want to try again? They let him know why they're there, and they ask if they can take a look around the house. So they start looking around, and he's going on and on about how this house is so beat up and it needs a lot of work and whatever, whatever. So when they go inside, they notice that there are some puzzle pieces on the floor. I'm going to say that a little bit louder for the folks in the back, alright? I say puzzle pieces on the floor. And if y'all remember, when they found Bianca, there was puzzle pieces stuck to her body. So they go ahead and detain him. They're like, you're not under arrest, but we want to go ahead and detain you. While detained, they go through his pockets and they find a wallet with an ID in it. And he's like, that's not me. I told you that my wallet was stolen. That's not me. And of course, the ID matched the person who it was, and it turned out that it was Harold Bennett. And he's like, wait. I only lied. I only lied to y'all because I did not want to go to jail because I got a couple of warrants out in Arkansas, and I didn't want to get caught up in that. Okay. That's the only reason why I lied. And they're like, yeah, whatever, dude. We're going to take you down to the station and we're going to ask you a couple questions about this murder from across the street. And he's like, okay, I'll go. So he goes down to the police station. They get to ask him questions, and he's sticking to his story. I don't know the girl. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you listen to how they're interrogating him versus how they were interrogating Jasper, it was very much giving gentle parenting versus old school parenting. Of course, they're giving the young black man old school parenting and giving this old white man gentle parenting. So they're trying to, tell us what happened, Mr. Harold. Just let us know. We know you're a good person. We just want to get to the bottom of it. So he finally is like, okay, look, I had sex with her. I gave her $50, but I got this little ED problem. and it only lasted about 5 minutes. But look, I didn't kill her. That's it. That's all. That's all I'm giving y'all. So they're like, okay, what else can we get out of this man? They start trying to appeal to his conscience, start talking to him real nice. Like, we know you have this guilt. You know, you holding on to this guilt. She has 2 daughters. Just let us know so that we can let them know. We can, really lay her to rest. And he's sticking to his story, okay? I just told you what I told you, all right? So the detectives end up switching. They bring in another detective, and if you ask me, it's still given very much gentle parenting, okay? Still talking to this man very nice. How can we're here to help you, Mr. Harold. Come on, let us know what we need to know. We know you're a good man. Just help us out. So he finally breaks down and confesses. He's like, look, I paid the girl $50 after we had that little 5 minutes worth of sex, but I didn't feel like it was worth $50, so I asked her nicely for it back, and she refused. She grabs this little knife off the table and she says, I'll stab you if you try to come take this $50 from me. And I got angry. Okay, I got real angry, and I felt like she was threatening me. So I was backed into a corner and I grabbed the closest thing I possibly could to protect myself. And it was this big old metal bar. And I just took it and started swinging and slashing. Okay. So detectives are like, all right, sir, thank you for that information. Would you be willing to take us back to your home and demonstrate what happened? And he's like, oh, sure. Of course I would. Let's go. You can tell in the videotapes that he was kind of like excited to tell his side of the story. Like he was very enthusiastic about how this murder happened. He goes into detail about how he asked for his $50 back and he gets angry and she grabs the little knife. And if you see the little knife, it's the babyest knife that you have in your big kitchen block of knives. It's the smallest one on the very end. So she grabs this knife and she's apparently threatening him to stab him, and he's just so scared for his life. So he grabs this metal bar and he just starts beating her with it. And at this point, of course, she's unconscious. So every time she seems to come back to life or come back awake, he beats her some more. And if you remember when I told y'all how badly her face was beaten and how swollen and unrecognizable she was, now we found out that she was beaten with this metal bar repeatedly for $50 that you told her that you were going to give to her. So that pretty much wrapped up his confession, reenacting what happened back at his house. But back in the interrogation room, his white ass is like, I just want to thank y'all for letting me go and explain my side of the story. But I also want y'all to go in my house and look under the kitchen sink. And under the kitchen sink, you're going to find a t-shirt. And there's going to be a 32 caliber revolver wrapped in this t-shirt. But it ain't got nothing to do with the crime. It ain't got nothing to do with the crime. I just want you to go on and get it and just save it for me. Just keep it safe for me, okay? That's all I need you to do. Well, sometime later, as the detectives and the attorney general are reviewing the confession tape, they get a call from the medical examiner. And the medical examiner tells them that not only was she brutally beaten to death, but she was also shot in the head 3 times with a 32 caliber revolver. Okay, Mr. Harold. So we now find out that not only did you beat her while she was defenseless, laying lifeless on the floor, but you also took this 32 caliber revolver that didn't have anything to do with the crime, and you shot her 3 times in the head. Please, Harold, let us know at what point you were scared, at what point you were fearful for your life. With all the evidence stacked up against him, Harold was, of course, arrested, and he was charged with first-degree murder, possession of a firearm, and obstruction of government operations. A jury found Bennett guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced as a habitual offender to life in prison, and the judge also went ahead and tacked on an additional 15 years for the use of the firearm in Bianca's murder. And that is the end of my very first murder case with Bianca Rainer and her murderer, Harold Bennett. I don't know if I'll keep this segment of the show, but I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my take on this crime.
You know the problem with you little niggas? You think you know everything about the damn world. And you don't know shit.
So I think that Bianca got the $6 from Jasper and she went to the store to go get some cigarettes. And while she's at the store, she runs into this nasty old man named Harold. And he is, of course, horny. He just moved to this new town in Arkansas. He failed to register himself and he's moving around real weird right now. So, a level 4 sex offender is described as a sexually violent predator. So, I think that he's horny. He just knows what he wants. He knows he wants to have sex, and that's what he's going to do. So, he asks Bianca if she wants $50 in exchange to do the little woo woo woo. You know, she's struggling right now. $50 is sounding real good. Might last her a couple days, get her some food, nothing crazy. But she ultimately agrees and she gets in his car and they go back to his place. I don't think that he even gave her the $50. I think they get back there and he's already in his mind. He knows that he's going to be violent and he knows that he's going to take what he wants. So he rapes her, and I don't think that she ever even picked up the knife like he said she did. I think that once he raped her, she was probably fighting back. And he knew that if he kept her alive, that she was possibly going to tell the police and he was going to get in some trouble. So the only thing he could do was to kill her. So he gets this metal rod and he starts beating her unconscious. And then when she stops moving, he puts her body in the dumpster and he wheels her across the street and lays her at this abandoned house. Now that wraps up my take on what I think happened in Bianca Rainer's murder. But truthfully, we will never really know what happened to her because she's not here to tell her side of the story. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's true crime story on guns and butter, baby.